Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another retro adventure. The end of another week, the end of another poll. We've got a very confident win for Scared Stiffs for the Ghostbusters role-playing game. Now as usual, I'll cover that on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and some other poll related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about our patrons, who this week I have been told know exactly who they're going to call. Now these people help support the channel and give me options to make the videos I want to make about quirky little role-playing games and stuff which isn't going to get all the views that the YouTube algorithm tells me I should be chasing. And I appreciate that so much from the bottom of my heart. Now, if you'd like to join them and help support the channel, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, or you'd like to gain access to one of the other levels of patronage we've got, then there's a Patreon in the description down below. If you check it out, it'd be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at Scared Stiffs. So, this is Scared Stiffs. It's for the Ghostbusters role-playing game. It's by West End Games, and it came out in 1987. And it is the third of the 3 adventures published for the original Ghostbusters role-playing game, although more adventures were published for the Ghostbusters International role-playing game, which was released after Ghostbusters 2 came out. And this is my favourite of the 3 original adventures. Now, while they're all brilliant in their own ways, they're very, very funny adventures, just something about this one appeals to me, because mainly it's set at a convention, and the Ghostbusters are being put up against a far more efficient version of the Ghostbusters, the Exterminators, who are everything the Ghostbusters aren't. While the Ghostbusters mess up, clown around, are totally unprofessional, the Exterminators are really professional. They turn up in their neat and tidy uniforms. They get the job done. They don't destroy the people's properties. They are everything that the Ghostbusters aren't and stand a chance of putting the Ghostbusters out of business. And the convention itself reminds me of so many business conventions I've been to where different stuff goes on. They are fairly ridiculous even in the real life because they're so far removed from normality. But online, I have seen this criticised because as the adventure goes on, while the initial sections of it are really quite compelling, the later segments do devolve a bit cartoonishly, and I can see that. But I think the early segments give enough role-playing that you can have a whole load of fun with this, even if it just becomes a bit stereotyped towards the end. But anyway, let's have a look at the back cover. Who? All the biggest names in the supernatural investigation and containment industry. Activities. Hobnob with the biggest names in the supernatural investigation and containment industry. Discuss the latest in ghost capture technology. Learn to dance the hokey-pokey. Guest of honour. Lewis Tully of Ghostbusters International. RSVP. By purchasing this adventure and getting together 2 to 6 friends and a Ghostmaster. Other things of interest. Zombies. Crazed but lovable Grandpa Ira. Wandering calculators. Television commercials. More zombies. Commando ghosts. Hilarious and deadly traps. Dwindling profit margins. Even more zombies. And a white stretch limo. Additional activities: tour an eerie hotel, visit a creaky ski lodge, eat at a musty chowder shack, uncover an insidious plot, battle diabolic villains, spend the night in a haunted vineyard, and save the earth, the universe, and everything. Sponsored by the Quasi-Universal Association of Clairvoyants, Kismetologists, and Spiritologists, also known as Quacks. You are cordially invited to the first annual Supernatural Conclave and Ski Party weekend. The Old Rath Hotel, nestled in scenic New England countryside of Rath, Vermont. When the wolfsbane bloom and the moon is full and bright. Who are you going to call? Scared Stiffs is a 32-page Ghostbusters adventure set in the convention capital of the world, Rath, Vermont. It's packed with illustrations and pullouts featuring the QuazCon convention guide, non-player ghosts, and excerpts from the Spates catalogue of nameless horrors and the Big Book of Occult Lore for 2 to 6 players aged 12 and up. From the author of the Yellow Clearance Black Box Blues, the paranoia adventure that won both the H.G. Wells Award and Game Designers Select Award as the Best Role-Playing Adventure of the Year, possibly the best written role-playing adventure in the history of the field by Dragon Magazine. Inside, well, West End Games had some lovely cartoony art for Ghostbusters, very similar in design to the paranoia stuff. I like it a lot. It brings a smile to my face. So, it's got an introduction to it. 'Twas the night before QuacksCon, when all through the hotel only creatures were stirring, like a ghost named Bertrell. The credits page, and then we're straight into the introduction. It's basically talking it through. You've got the pull-out section, Ghostmaster background notes, the crid strategy, because that's what this adventure is about. Basically, the players get invited to a convention where they're to represent Ghostbusters International. Lewis Tully's going to be there as the CEO of the company, but the players are heroes. They're expecting to be treated like that. And then this other corporation turns up, ETI, Ecto Terminations Incorporated, with their Ec-Terminators, very efficient Ghostbusters, as I said, who do everything right. They don't mess up. Even if the players don't want to mess up, you've got to remember in Ghostbusters that there's a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a ghost on your ghost die every skill check, where the Ghostmaster can make something bad happen. So you fire your ecto beam at a ghost, you roll a 6, you still manage to capture the ghost, but the beam scorches the curtains on the far side of the room and sets the room on fire. That's the kind of things that the Ghostbusters have to put up with. They are generally destructive comic characters. And suddenly you've got professional ghost terminators turning up and sorting everything out. But it turns out what they are is the crid, an alien species which look a lot like lobsters, who are draining the life force from Earth by capturing ghosts and sucking up the ectosphere. Now this will lead to everything dying on Earth as the life force leaves, but the crid will go on and sell it. Now it turns out they want to sell it as a sort of soft drink, which is one of the elements which isn't cool. It would be far better if they were just insidious aliens wanting to drain off our life force and kill the planet. It mentions what will happen if the PKE gets drained away. Eventually the world dying. Talks through the players, and then we've got a cast of characters. So, supernatural theorist, Dr. Pierre Lutis, a writer of such books as Bigfoot is Real, Would I Lie, There's Something Fishy in the Bermuda Triangle, which are actually sober scholarly works on paranormology. The lurid titles were added by his publisher. We've got Lewis Tully. Arthur Floss, a werewolf. Now, I'm sure he turns up in another adventure, the Halloween one from Ghostbusters 2, Ghostbusters International game. But I don't see any connection between the characters. I ran that adventure about a year ago, and he just seems a random character that turns up. It doesn't seem connected to this at all, and this obviously isn't connected to an adventure which hasn't yet been published. Eric Toodles and Sam Payne's Wine and Spirits Entrepreneurs, a typical zombie, Molly Bright, a cute girl who speaks with a speech impediment. We've got various characters with funny accents going on here because the adventure wants you to hand out various scripts to the players and get them to say these. Lillian Peabody, a beautiful young woman, although it looks more like Peggy out of Married with Children to me. The Crid Invasion leader, Arnie Nickelbaum, the Terminations Incorporated frontman. We've got Maid, and we've got a typical Terminator, a high-tech Ghostbusters ripoff, in their very efficient blank-faced uniform, looking a bit like a stormtrooper. But we can see they've got incredibly high skills, 7 dice in karate, 7 dice in fire weapon, 6 dice intimidate, 6 dice in guerrilla marketing. They are very efficient compared to the players. Anyway, we've got the start, where the players are contacted by Lewis Tully. They're going to be attending this convention. They've got descriptions of their checking in at the hotel when they arrive, what suite they're going to be in. There's another suite where the Terminators have been chasing after a ghost, and there's damage which can be found. Early clues. We've got Lewis Tully, who receives a call from Egon Spengler, and are informed that the PKE background count is lowering. They don't know why, but Ghostbusters will have no ghosts to catch just within a few days. Which is what Lewis is bothered about. We've got breakfast, we've got ghosts turning up, the grapes of wrath. Of course, the place is Wrath, so always a good time for a pun. The Grape Brothers, Bertrell the frightened ghost, who is terrified. Help me, I am Bertrell, and you are in danger. Listen to me, you will be next. Because he knows what's going on. Because one of the twists of this adventure is the ghosts know they're getting drained, know this will lead to the destruction of Earth, and team up with the Ghostbusters. So for the first time ever, ghosts and Ghostbusters are working together. Then we're on to the convention itself. You know, they get approached by various people. We've got lots of encounters, things going on, chances for the Ghostbusters to prove themselves incompetent, but also to mix and find out with various things which are going on. And now ETI. So the exterminators turn up and look very, very confident. When they get back to their hotel, however, a ghost has marked up on the wall, "Help us," in ectoplasm. Second one, Grandpa Ira's ski lodge and spirit show. So we've got more encounters where the Ghostbusters get to show off their general incompetence, while the exterminators show up. But in the middle here, we've got a handout. So we've got the program for QuazCon, talking about different events, talking about places, food and beverages there, an advert for exterminations. We've got a map of the area, different places they might visit in the adventure, a registry of different things in the town of Wrath. We've got a little advert for West End game stuff, Paranoia, Ghostbusters, The Price of Freedom, and Star Trek board games. I thought they were by Fazer, but apparently they're West End games. My memory has mistaken me over the years. Anyway, we've got some handouts here, because at one point in the adventure, the players will be encountering a person who's possessed by 6 ghosts. And you hand out the cards which the players have to do impersonations while they read. A little bit of fun, kind of cool. Events, other parts of the programming, an advert for the Spates catalogue, and again a map of the hotel and a map of Wrath, Vermont. Anyway, it'll carry on through this section where they meet Grandpa Ira, who's possessed by these ghosts, and you get the players to read out their silly accented ghosts. Onto Captain Claymore and his ghost commandos. The players will be investigating ETI by this stage. Not only are they the competition, so you kind of want to find out what they're doing, but you've been warned by ghosts that something else going on. And you notice one of the things at the end of episode 3. You notice that one of the items that's been handed out by ETI as promotional, a calculator, has sprouted legs and is a small robot wandering around. The calculator is a trans droid. So, lots of things attract them to the warehouse of ETI equipment, but there's also some ghosts which are attacking. There's various trans droids, and the Ghostbusters will be able to discover that there's a lot more high-tech stuff around than should be. Exterminations is very efficient, but this is out of this world level technology, quite literally. Invasion of the Ghost Snatchers, so further encounters, and they get attacked by zombies, and they will discover what's going on. And finally, the Crid warship turns up and starts vacuuming off the ectosphere. The players will end up aboard it, and they face off against the Crid, who are revealed to be these lobster men, and the Crid put them into a game show to compete against exterminators to prove themselves. There's various judges who are kidnapped humans and the famous Ghostbusters, so Venkman, Spengler, Janine, Dana, and various characters out of the adventure, a Ghostbuster zombie amongst them. And they have to beat the exterminators to save the day. They get dumped out on being efficient, but are plummeting to the ground, and ghosts come to their rescue. Just about you to learn, if a Ghostbuster can bounce, the air around you begins to spin, ghostly spectres materialise, moaning and shrieking happily, and you stop falling. And the ghosts visit you, telling you, "Good job, I'm impressed, I guess the Earth is in good hands after all. I'm glad I had the guys rescue you before you went splat. You saved my beloved vineyards from those alien scuzoids, and I guess I owed you one." And that's the end of the adventure. Lewis Tully reveals that with the ectosphere returned, that there's more ghosts than ever, so there's lots and lots of business for Ghostbusters, and Peter races off because there's a small fortune to be made. What are we waiting for? And finally, a white hot object streaks out of the sky and crashes at your feet. It's an Exterminations Incorporated mug crashing down from the starship. So, while it gets a bit silly with the game show and the lobster men at the end, I think the rest of the adventure is pretty solid. The idea of the convention, the idea of ghosts reaching out to Ghostbusters for help, the investigation goes on in a fairly logical way as you look into Exterminations Limited, and then As I said, it goes to pot a bit at the end, where you get kidnapped by aliens, they're lobster men, and you have to take part in one of their game shows to win the day. I think the final chapter could have been a lot better, but the rest of it makes up for it, because I really do think there's a lot of good jokes in there, there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of roleplay, even to handing out cards and getting your players to do silly impressions. There's a whole load of fun to be had in here. So that was Scared Stiffs, and that won the poll this week with some 42% of the vote. Way ahead of everything else, and absolutely dominating from the very beginning. And I'm so glad of that. As I said, it's my favourite of the 3 original Ghostbusters adventures, and I think it's hilarious. It connects with various things from my life so well, and shines them under a humorous light. So I connect with that adventure in a very weird way. But I was glad to have some humour in my life this week, because this week has been a bit depressing. But anyway, that absolutely dominated. Behind it was The Perfect Warrior for the Street Fighter RPG on 22%, so 20% behind. San Francisco Knights for Cyborg Commando on 16%, which I was kind of glad to see. Nice to see it getting some support. We'll get around to covering it at some point and seeing whether it lived up to the premise or whether it was let down by the rules as the main game was. The Nightwalker Villi Affair for Millennium's End was on 11%, and the Key of Deliriad for Slay Industries on only 10%. Now, I'd love to cover those. Slay Industries, as I've said before, is my local game, developed in Paisley, some 25 miles in that direction from me. But I absolutely adore Millennium's End, and we'll get around to covering that sometime. Even if you don't vote for it, I'm just going to make videos on it, because I do love that game. But anyway, they're all cleared out the poll. And we're going back to a retro RPG poll. And the first couple of options are suggestions from viewers. Now, once again, I put out the invitation, although I already have quite a long list of things to put in the polls. So I might not get around to things. But if you've got any ideas for games that I should have a look at, cover in one of these videos, then please make it in the comments down below, and I'll add it to the list and we'll get around to it at some point. Because I'm absolutely adoring you, the viewers, introducing me to games that I didn't know. I started the channel introducing you to games which are in my collection that I love, and now I'm getting the honour of having that returned to me and being shown some wonderful games. Anyway, first up is the Dying Earth RPG from Pelgrane Press, 2001. Now this is based on novels by Jack Vance, and I'm really not that familiar with them. So this will be a real learning experience when I get a chance to look through it, if it wins. Second up is also a suggestion, but not quite a serious one, because we've got Macho Women with Guns by BTRC in 1988. Now, one of the guys in my group had this, and he thought it was hilarious. There's various spin-offs for it as well, which would be fun to cover. But let's put it in the poll and see if it wins. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun. The other options are just ones from my collection. They've been in the polls before, so I'll just briefly go over them. We've got Spycraft, which is the D20 game which came out from Alderac Entertainment in 2002. Now, I'll be interested to look at this because I covered Top Secret fairly recently, so seeing what a modern spy game, but also I'd like to see what difference it is between Spycraft and the D20 modern setting, because they've already got 2 sets of rules for modern gaming. And seeing what the differences are and how Spycraft builds on those will be pretty interesting. We've got World Book 5 Triax and the NGR for Rifts. Now this is one of the fabulous books, high-tech mecha armour, really great stuff, so many ideas packed in here. It'd be an absolute joy to cover. Rifts books always are filled with stuff, but Triax and the NGR is one of my favourites. And finally, we've got Dwarf Stone and Steel for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which came out from Hogshead Publishing in 2002. Now, I noticed the poll was a bit lacking in fantasy games, which are obviously a mainstay of role-playing, so I looked through my collection for something we hadn't covered yet, and Dwarf Stone and Steel jumped out. It's a great book by Hogshead, and it definitely ticks the box of being fantasy, having a look into the dwarves of the Warhammer world. Anyway, what else have I been up to? Over on DriveThruRPG, I've been bringing out more classes as I build up to this adventure and campaign setting which brings people together from across time and space. So I've been bringing out classes. I've done Wild West ones, pirate ones, sci-fi ones, cyberpunk ones, etc. And I'm now moving on to the Renaissance. I'm working on ones for Roman settings, feudal Japanese. As we flesh out these won't be as many classes as the other groups I've done. They'll just be 4 or 5 in each, along with an equipment book. But I'm building up the options that people can play from across time and space to dump them into this setting where adventurers end up together in a mysterious setup. They don't know quite why they're there. But anyway, those are available on DriveThruRPG, or if you're a Patreon of Laird or Librarian status, they're linked to on a shared Google Drive, and if you would like to gain access to that, over 500 books now, then the Patreon's in the description down below. And over on RPG Gamer, well, the Acolyte series has now ended, so I have started going through it episode by episode, statting it out. And there's some interesting stuff in there. There's a lot of information, especially about starships and the background planets, although the characters aren't that well fleshed out yet, so I'll maybe have to leave some of them aside. But if you're interested in the Star Wars D6 system, if you check us out on RPG Gamer, I'd love to hear your comments as we build these characters, and feedback is absolutely essential to make it better. But anyway, I've been wittering on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.